Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I show you the game played by Pawel and Michal, and this beautiful game complete in only 26 moves. And let's see how the game play. The game starts with the pawn to e4, c5, and here you have the Sicilian opening. Then the game continue with the knight to f3, d6. Then white play a d4. Then the black capture, c takes d4, and now the knight takes d4. And here you have the very strong knight in the center of the square. So the black continue with the develop of the knight to f6. Then the white continue develop knight to c3. After this, the black play g6, and here you have the first 5 moves. And in this position, the white is slightly better as you have the center knight in the center, which able to control much of the space on the board. After this, the white keep on develop with the bishop and move the bishop to e3. And then the bishop play bishop g7, and this the black prepare for a short castling and bring the king off the center. Then the white play f3, and now the black just go for a short castling. After this, queen to d2, and here the knight to c6. Then the white go for a long castling, and this blue path indicate the idea for the white to play a long castling to move the rook from a1 to d1. Then the white have the idea to move the rook to d4 and goes to a4, and after this the rook can have the idea to attack the pawn at a7 and start to attack at the rank 7. So after this move, the black just push d5, and here the knight just capture the knight for the exchange, and here the bishop just capture the knight. And at this position you can see that the bishop still attacking the pawn at a7. So the idea of bringing the rook to d5, a5, we are able to win the pawn at a7, and then the rook at a7, we are trying to control the rank 7. So this is the first 10 move, and at this position you can see that the white is better in this position. After this, bishop h6 was played and trying to exchange off the bishop. So the bishop capture, and now the queen capture. Then the rook to b8, and here e5 was played, trying to attack the knight. And now the knight moved to d7. Then the rook moved to d4, sacrificing the pawn. And here, if the rook goes to h4 and the queen will be able to capture and checkmate. For example, if you take the pawn, the free pawn at e5, then the rook will goes to h4, and this checkmate will be not able to avoid. If you just move the rook to e8, the queen will just capture the pawn and check the king. And if the king move to f8, then the simple queen back rank checkmate, and the king is blocked by its own pieces. And Same if you move the pawn to f5, then the queen will just capture and it will be a checkmate as well. So at this move, after the rook to h4 and the queen capture, it will be a checkmate. After the knight capture the e5, and the black will have no pieces to prevent the h7 pawn being captured. So therefore, the pawn at e5 is a poison pawn and this cannot be captured. After this move, rook to e8 was played, and after this, the white pushed the pawn forward to e6. F pawn trying to attack the pawn at g6. So this bishop capture the pawn at g6 and we will win the game as well. For example, if you make a move such as a6, then it will be a mate in 6 with the bishop sacrifice, bishop to the pawn, and this allowed the pawn at h7 be captured by the queen check. After check the king, then if the king move to f8, then the queen will go to f7 and it will be a checkmate. So for example, if you make another example move, then the queen will just capture and will go inside, then the queen will be a checkmate. So back to this position, if the pawn captures the bishop, then the queen will just capture, and also it will mate in just the next two moves. If the king just move to f8, then now you do not come here to check, because if you come here to check, you can be able to block by the knight. So therefore, the best way to be played is to move the rook to g4, and here there's nothing you can block the checkmate of the queen at g7 or g8. So any move from the black such as a5, you just be a queen checkmate at g7 or a g8. So back to this position, the black just play knight to f8 and this maintain the equal position. And this knight will just protect the pawn from being attacked. And now if you use the bishop to capture, then here you can use either the pawn or the knight to capture. And if you use knight to capture, now the rook cannot come to here, because the knight will just capture the rook. And this position, it will be safe for the black. So after knight f8, then the white play rook to a4, trying to attack the pawn, and also continue attack at this rank 7. But the better solution at this move will be pushing the pawn forwards to attack, such as have this idea to attack the pawn. So in the actual game, the white move rook to a4, and now e5 was played. After this, h4 was played, and trying to threaten with the pawn attack and check the king. This will be protected with the bishop as well. And now the rook at h5 will be very active. So after this move, e4 was played, trying to block the bishop diagonal. And here the pawn just capture the pawn. And after this, the pawn pushed to d4 and to block and also attack the knight. So at this move, the white just ignore the attack and just move the pawn h5 to continue attack the pawn. Then rook b7 was played, and here the bishop can goes to c4 and check the king. But in the actual game, after this move, the white play e5, trying to allow the bishop diagonal to attack the pawn. Then queen b6 was played, trying to attack the pawn at b2 and also attack the knight after the check. So the knight just moved to d1 and protect the pawn at b2. So the queen attack the pawn will not be able to capture. After this, bishop g4 was played, trying to capture the pawn, and here the white just capture the pawn at g6 and trying to threaten with the pawn attack, and then capture the knight and promote to queen and check the king. So if you make an example move such as a6, then the pawn will be pushed forward to attack. And you make another example move such as a5, the pawn will just capture and become a queen. After check and the rook capture, then you have a queen takes h7 checkmate. So after this move, e6 was played, and now the pawn just able to win the game, and the pawn capture will win the game and mate in 6. So I give a couple of seconds to figure out how the continuation of the white to play and win the game. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who love to enjoy the show, here are the moves that the white play and checkmate the king. In the actual game, after e6 from the black, the white is winning with the pawn capture and check the king. And in the actual game, the king just moved to h8, and here the queen goes to f6 and continue check with the diagonal check the king, and this forced the black to block with the rook. So after this move, here come a very great move from the white, and with the queen capture, the black resign the game. If you don't continue the game with the king capture, then the pawn to promote h8 become a queen and check the king, and this check is control much of the square. So the only square that can move is to move the king to f7. After move king to f7, then the queen to f6 continue check, and king to g8, then you have a back rank checkmate with the rook. So back to this position. So back to this position, if you capture with the knight, then the bishop will just capture and you have the bishop diagonal check. So if you use the rook to capture, then the queen just move queen to g6 and check the king. And now you have two moves. If you move the king to f8, then the rook will just continue to capture h7. And now you have a queen to f7 and it will be a checkmate. So any example move such as queen takes the pawn to delay the checkmate, the knight can just capture. And after this, you have nothing much can be do. if you just move the rook up to e7, then you have a rook to h8 checkmate. And then back to this version, if you move away your rook to b8, then you just have a queen to f7 checkmate. So the knight capture also will be lost for the black. And if you move the king to f7, then the simple checkmate will be queen to f6 and it will be a checkmate. And with this, thank you.